You're listening to the RTI Press Pass powered by Rocky Top Insider.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome into the Rocky Top Insider Press Pass podcast. My name is Rick Butler. Join with me, as always, my good friends, your good friends. That is Ryan Shumpert, and that is Ryan Sylvia. Back to SEC action this weekend as Tennessee goes to Starkville, Mississippi. Stark Vegas, as I believe they say, to take on the Mississippi State Bulldogs. Today is Wednesday, September 24th. Welcome into the show. I got Ryan Shumpert, Ryan Sylvia. Shumpert, how are you doing today? Getting back to SEC play this weekend.
Yeah, excited to get back to SEC play. I mean, last week was just a lot of fallout from Georgia, which naturally so for a big game and a softer game against UAB. So excited this week. All eyes towards Mississippi State, and certainly a game that looks more challenging now than it did when we were probably about a month ago, a little over a month ago, sitting here going through Tennessee's schedule and giving our thoughts.
Yeah, Sylvia, what about you?
First road game, so I think that's always interesting to see how these Tennessee teams do on the road. Obviously, not the best track record under Josh Heupel in these road games, and there certainly seems to be, I guess, a trap game or something along those lines that they fall into every year. Now, this one was I think a trendy pick towards the end of the offseason to be that trap game that Tennessee might lose on the road, and it certainly looks like Mississippi State is plenty good enough to beat an SEC team, a top 15 SEC team, but we'll get more into our predictions later on in the show, but I certainly think it'll be an interesting matchup.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And I mean, like you said, Sylvia, a second ago, true road game. Have either of you been to Mississippi State before? I know I have not. I think it's an open air press box. People keep talking about, can Tennessee handle the environment? How will the cowbells affect things? Nobody's asked me about my stadium pulse. I think it's an open air press box. Those cowbells are going to be ringing. I'm going to be ducking for cover over here. Nobody's asked me about how I'm feeling about the road atmosphere. I got to tell, I'm a little nervous myself. You guys might have to deal with me on the fritz with all those cowbells.
Yeah, it's a lot of adversity. People, it's not just as I often said back, and I'll still say about the Titans if I'm going to a game or something. It's not just a 4-quarter game for the players. 4-quarter game for the fans. 4-quarter game for the media. So. Have been to Starkville, but only for basketball. So this will be my first time at. It's Davis Wade.
Davis Wade. I know that because my brother-in-law's name is Davis and my father-in-law's name is Wade. So it's a shout out to them, but it's a pretty easy one to remember.
Yeah, I've had some struggles back and forth whether it's Wade Davis or Davis Wade this week.
Yeah,
but Wade Davis sounds better. I'll say it. Wade
does.
Davis, it rolls off the tongue much easier. I've never been.
It's not a hyphen though, so it's not like that.
So it's just fully. It's just some guy's name. Okay, good to know.
Yeah. That was my next thought. Is it two guys' last name, and they decided to go Davis Wade over Wade Davis, but no hyphen. It's just his name.
So that is, if you are able to hyphen it like Thompson Bowling, like that Bowling Thompson would be horrific. That'd be terrible. Thompson Bowling,
BTA?
That works. Yeah, BTI.
Oh, but BTA. Now that does work for some. Before we get into things today, and we're going to be obviously talking about the Mississippi State game coming up this weekend. We're also going to maybe even dive into our couple of thoughts on the SEC announcement that happened on Tuesday night. I bear with me for a minute. I want to go off topic, and this is a question to both of you, but to be truthful, it's more of a question to Shumpert. Ryan, I know you said you were excited about getting back to SEC play. Obviously, it's a big slate coming up this weekend. There's some big games. Alabama, Georgia closing off the night slate. I know there's a bunch of others, Penn State, Oregon, things of that nature. If you had to choose between the Week 5 college football slate or the Ryder Cup, you can only watch one.
Yeah.
I know you're a big fan. Which one do you think you're picking?
Yeah, no, if and you're right, it's tough because it's a great college football slate. If I wasn't working, let's say Tennessee's bye week was this week instead of next week, and I could, I'm sitting at home, I can only watch one. I'd watch the Ryder Cup.
Yeah, wow. I figured you might. He's dedicated to the Ryder Cup.
It genuinely might be my favorite event in the entire sports calendar.
I mean, between those two, I'm picking football, obviously. I don't hate golf. I've hit the links a few times with Shumpert, and I think once with Rick so far this summer, but I'm certainly picking football. I thought when Rick brought up this off-topic question before we got on and didn't tell us what it was, I thought he was going to ask what it was like to have a baseball team in the playoffs this year, and I was really excited to answer it. And that might be my answer to is get football on the main screen. Have the little iPad with the Red Sox on the side. See, we still got to clinch the playoff spot. So,
just a quick question, not to point to this book back over here. When's your last? When was your last championship ring fitted? Just quick, because mine was fairly recent. You can see right here.
You have the recent. You have the most recent one of us three. However, the Red Sox have the most World Series in our lifetimes. All three of us.
It's true.
So,
I'm definitely last.
As someone who does love to tout past rings, it's hard to disagree.
Yeah. In any argument in this conversation, I would come in last. There's not really there's not really a spin zone. Red Sox have won more recent Cubs. Rangers had made it to a second World Series in Rick's lifetime, even though they didn't win it. Cubs have only been to the one in mine. So, yeah.
You have the best team this year, though. I would say you have the best.
But we're just not even good. We're just not even that good. So I'm just not even. And we've lost 5 straight now, and our best pitcher since the All-Star game exited the game with back spasms in the 3rd inning last night. So I have no expectations of the Cubs doing anything. So I'm not going to hype up having the best team before the playoffs when we're inevitably losing the wild card series.
Just speaking of tangential sports, I was on the radio program The Drive with Russell Smith and Bear and Bob Baskerville yesterday. They asked me a question. They said, if the Titans and the Cowboys, if a game broke out between the two in your own backyard, would you watch the game or would you shut the curtains? I'll post that question to you guys.
Yeah, I mean, I'd watch the game if it was in my backyard. I sit there and flip it on TV every week. But I will say I will be much more locked in on Sunday driving back to what's going on in the Ryder Cup as opposed to the Titans.
Sure. I told Russell, I said, look, we made the Giants look like Josh Heupel's 2022 offensive team. We might make the Titans look pretty good as well. So you might want to watch that game if you're a fan of Tennessee. All right, let's go ahead and get into things for coming up this Saturday. Obviously, an afternoon game against Mississippi State. Before we get there, though, just a couple of quick housekeeping pieces. The RTI Lowdown, it continues to be a hit success on the Rocky Top Insider YouTube channel, but we also want to remind people that it is available wherever you get your favorite podcasts. I know when you're on YouTube, with obviously the familiarity and the algorithm, you might see that show pop up. Podcasting, a little bit hard to find. You've got to go and specifically search it out, but the show is available on all of your favorite podcasting platforms, whether that's Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Maybe we got some Amazon podcast listeners out there. I don't know. But wherever you listen to your favorite shows, the RTI Lowdown with Chris Lowe and Bob Baskerville is there as well. And they had a great episode on Sunday, which I really recommend you going to check out. They interviewed Jeff Lebby. I mean, how about that? A week away from the game, they were able to get on Mississippi State head coach to talk about the game. And he talked for them for more than 10 minutes, I feel like, just kind of talking about different things with the program and the rebuilding that has been going on in Starkville. He talked a little bit about Jalen Smith, the former Tennessee linebacker who switched over to Starkville earlier in the offseason. Really recommend going and checking that out. But also, Chris Lowe, Bob Baskerville, they do a great show as well. So I think it's a lot of fun for not just Tennessee football fans, but also college football fans as they dive into all the latest topics around the sport. So that show is at Sunday nights, typically 8 p.m., maybe a little bit later, depending on if there's a guest or not happening. I know this last one was at 8:30. So as you're sort of winding down for the night to close down the weekend, make sure to head over to the Rocky Top Insider YouTube account, or make sure to check out where your favorite podcasts are for the RTI Lowdown with Bob Baskerville and Chris Lowe. Also give a shout out to our good friends Kyler Kerbyson, VFL, and Reed Bacon over with Pancakes and Bacon. Their show comes out on Monday mornings. That's another great one as well. So again, we've got you covered all throughout the week between the Press Pass on Wednesdays, Pancakes and Bacon on Mondays, our post-game shows on Saturdays, and the RTI Lowdown on Sundays. Make sure to be subscribed to the RTI YouTube account. We have a lot of good stuff over there. I know both of you got to check out the show this week as well, and it's always fun to listen to an interview of that magnitude before a game that carries so much weight as this one does coming up on Saturday.
Yeah, it is, and obviously, I think just in general, each week we'll get a little bit more of a zoomed-out SEC view and more specific stuff on the opponent with Chris's kind of expertise. So I think that's will always be a cool part of the show, but especially this week having Jeff Lebby on was a really cool perspective and little extra twist for Vol fans.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And speaking of this show right here, you can also find it on the WATE 6 Plus Smart TV app, which you can also find the RTI lowdown there as well. But go check out and hang out with our good friends over at WATE. They're obviously producing great news and great content leading into the football season as we dive back into SEC play here. I'm sure you'll be able to see some combination of the three of us after the game on Saturday as we talk to the great host or the great staff of talent that they have over there. So make sure you are downloading the WATE 6 Plus Smart TV app so you can find this show and much more that's happening in Knoxville and around the Tennessee football team. With that being said, though, gentlemen, let's go ahead and dive into the game coming up on 4:15 p.m. Eastern time on Saturday, again in Starkville, Mississippi. To me, this is an interesting Mississippi State team. This is Jeff Lebby's second year with the Bulldogs, and there's already been a big improvement. They went 2-10 last year, off to a 4-0 start this year. You can't do much better as the team sort of finds its footing here in year 2 under Lebby. I think you can attribute that to a bunch of different things, and some of those are areas that we were familiar with and we saw during Josh Heupel's early tenure with Tennessee. On the offensive side of the ball, under the Blake shape and getting him back with the mature leader and a veteran presence that he is. I know that's important, but obviously I think just being in a system like that, and we'll get into more about that system here coming up shortly, but just the different types of players being in that system, getting a better understanding and a better growth in that system, I think that obviously helps you out. And then on the defensive side of the ball, I kind of liken it to myself in my garage, and I think Sylvia might be able to relate to this a little bit. Guys, when I moved in with my wife after getting married, you look in my garage, I didn't have many tools. I had like a screwdriver and a hammer. That was it. I couldn't do very much with it. But over time, I started getting some more tools. I got myself multiple power drills. I got myself an impact drill. I got myself a buzz saw. I got myself a sander. What do you know about the sander? It's a nice tool. That doesn't make me an elite home improvement expert. But it does make me better. It doesn't make me a carpenter, even though I would like to be a carpenter one day. I think
much like JC, you are a carpenter,
right? I think that'd be a fun side quest for me to do. Learn my carpenter ways. We won't talk about handshakes here. That's still a sore subject. It was tough.
A travesty.
Having all those tools, it doesn't make me an elite homeowner or an elite home improvement guy, but it does make me better than where I started before. I think that's kind of the truth with this Mississippi State defense is it still might not be elite, but it was a pretty low bar to pass from last year, and they've certainly been able to do that through the first 4 games this season. Shump, you wrote about just kind of the preview of this Mississippi State team earlier in the week. Tell me about what you know about Jeff Lebby's squad here now, 4 games into year 2 with an undefeated start to the season and a home win against number 12 Arizona State from just a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I think, look, it's the big question I've been asking or fumbling in my mind, and I talked to Sam Schuyler of the Clarion Ledger who covers Mississippi State this week, and the question I asked him is, how much of Mississippi State being 4-0, doubling their wins from last year, is being a lot better as opposed to the schedule. And naturally, it's a little bit of both. They've played 4 non-conference games. They, 3 of those were against easy opponents. The Arizona State win was a really good win, but, I also don't think Arizona State's quite the number 10 team in the country or whatever they were when those 2 teams were ranked. So I think there's defensively is the big thing I would point to. Like, they were just horrible defensively last year. And I don't necessarily think they're going to be great defensively still, but I think they have the ability to be competent. And then offensively, like you just look at the numbers, it's a lot of what you'd expect with someone who runs an offense similar to Josh Heupel. They are able to run the ball at a pretty consistent clip. I will say that's a big question mark I do have because they didn't run the ball all that well against Arizona State, which is obviously their hardest game to date. But the numbers are pretty balanced between rushing and passing. And then, it's, again, kind of like Tennessee. Tennessee doesn't always put up the most gaudy passing numbers just from a yard standpoint every given week, but they've been efficient doing so. And you said it with a veteran quarterback in Blake Shapen. We've seen in Josh Heupel's offense, it's been the veteran quarterbacks, maybe not the most talented, but the veteran quarterbacks that have been the best in his system. So I think there's a comfort there. And just an ability to run things with efficiency at this point. So it's certainly been a team that I don't think is going to be the worst in the SEC this year, but I'm still uncertain whether they're still going to be one of the worst teams, or they really could truly be kind of a middle of the pack SEC team.
I think they're probably realistically like the step below the middle of the pack. Like I think there's the firm middle, which probably looks like, I don't know, like this year just off the top of my head, like a South Carolina, where it's like that's a good football team. I don't think they're going to obviously now make the playoffs with the losses they have and they'll start their off to, but it's not a bad team. Like you have to wake up to play them. I think Mississippi State's probably like a step below that, but not at the bottom rung like they were last year. Obviously, they're not as bad as Kentucky is this year. And I still, though, like, should they be ranked in the top 25 right now? Probably, I guess. They're 4-0 with the win over a then number 12 team. It doesn't really matter to me at the same time because I don't think they're a top 25 team at the end of the day. Like, I think they're still, like we just talked about, the step below the middle tier, and probably a team that'll finish 6-6, 7-5. So it's a game that Tennessee should win. There's really no excuse for Tennessee to not win this, but it isn't the pushover it was last year, like you guys were saying. Rick's analogy was great with the tools in the garage. Like it's just a completely retooled roster. The defense, particularly the personnel, is just a lot better. And you've heard Tennessee's coaches like Rodney Garner, I think, or no, it was Alec Ablin say that yesterday, where the defense for Mississippi State, that's kind of just the biggest improvement. Like it's not like they overhauled things schematically or anything like that. It's just they got better players in the system. So that's what it comes down to. But at the end of the day, still, it's like, yeah, it's a road game. It's going to be a pretty good environment, but you can't lose it. Like the Florida game on the you can't lose this one.
Can't do it.
Can't do it.
You can't
Nope.
do it. So if you're Tennessee and you have aspirations to make the playoffs, you can't lose this one. And it shouldn't really be like a nail biter either. You don't have to blow them out, but you have to win kind of comfortably.
Yeah, I think that's where there's no reason to think Tennessee's offense shouldn't start fast like they have all season. Because Mississippi State's defense isn't great. I think that's really important in this game, just to take control early. Now, I will say Mississippi State has an opening drive touchdown in all 4 of their games this year. So, you could probably point to there's a good chance Mississippi State will go right down the field and score too, or there's reasons to think that could happen. But that would be the big thing, to your point of like, you don't have to kill them. It's just a game you want to be in control of and make Mississippi State play from behind throughout the course of the game. And, that's been a big strength of off and on in Josh Heupel's tenure of getting off to really fast starts, especially on the offensive end. I think you need to do that in this game. And then obviously the follow-up of that is you might not have to keep it up at the same rate if you start really fast, but you can't have those big second quarter letdowns that Tennessee had in like 2021 and then had in the Georgia game earlier this year.
I think one of the interesting things about this game and the Mississippi State roster as a whole, and Chris mentioned this to Jeff Lebby when they had spoken in the interview the other day, but there was a big overhaul. I mean, 60-plus new players entering this Mississippi State team. There have been some improvements on the defensive side of the ball. To me, the two areas that stand out, and again, we're still early in the season. You do have that Arizona State game, but otherwise, it's your Northern Illinois, it's your Alcorn States. It's hard to make true sort of takeaways from that. But to me, the areas stand out that are Mississippi State has an improved pass rush from I think the edge rusher position, the side of the defensive line, and then their secondary has also statistically been pretty good so far, especially at limiting some of those explosive plays. That being said, I think that Tennessee's got an opportunity to run the ball here, and we all know that when Tennessee can run the ball, it sets up things and it changes what the defense wants to do. So Mississippi State can be good at slowing down the pass, or maybe really good at sort of limiting those explosive plays. But the second that they have to start adjusting their defense, if Tennessee has taken advantage with the run game, I think some of that opens back up. And we all know what Josh Heupel can sort of unfold throughout 4 quarters of a game and to get his offense in the right way. So I look at Tennessee's run game as a big key to this game to just sort of open everything up. And obviously that's kind of the tail of the tape every game, but I think especially with the Mississippi State defense like the one that this is.
Yeah, I mean, Arizona State, the numbers are just crazy from that game. Arizona State did not throw for many yards, which is, they have a good quarterback back from a playoff team, but they ran for 251 yards. And I don't know if anybody was watching the end of that game. Arizona State put together, if I'm not mistaken, the game was tied. And Arizona State put together like a 7-minute drive where they ran the ball basically every play right down the field. And then they got into the 10-yard line, and Mississippi State made a stand, held them to a field goal, and then Mississippi State hit the big long play touchdown to take the leads. But just in the second half of that game, Arizona really took control just by running the ball. So I think I think a thing I'll be interested in. We've seen Tennessee. I mean, they've done this in the past, but I feel like a little bit of an increase with Joey Aguilar. The RPOs is just an area that he's comfortable in. Is there a point of emphasis or a balance of balancing like what you're seeing with just like trusting the offensive line? Let's run the ball in a lot of these plays. We don't need to take many risks, even if it's short passes, as it typically is in the RPO game. So that's something I'll be interested to see. And one thing I'll give my buddy Nick, who is a Mississippi State fan, to your point, Rick, about the Alcorn State game, which they won 60-something to nothing, I believe.
Yeah.
He said that he feels confident he could argue in front of the Mississippi Board of Education that it's not worth the risk of those kids getting CTE for Alcorn State to have a football team. He said that team was so bad that those kids do not need to be playing football. It's not worth the risk of CTE.
That is a crazy way to put it. That was expertly said.
I mean, you look at what Mississippi State did the next week against Northern Illinois. Now, Northern Illinois is not the worst football team in the country, but they're not good, right? Like it's a MAC team that, sure, they beat Notre Dame last year, but they kind of fell off the face of the earth. They're 1-2 right now. But that game was 14-10 at halftime. Mississippi State, like it ended up being 38-10, which looks a little bit better, still not great. Mississippi State did not have a good game last week, and Blake Shapen did not have a good game at quarterback last week. Now, I think that's more of a rarity. Like you just didn't show up for one game and play well. Like I don't think it means Mississippi State's an awful team. But yeah, it does show maybe don't read as much into the Alcorn State blowout or, what is, a decently strong win at Southern Miss just because you had to play on the road in one of those games and then against Arizona State at home. So like I said, I think they're fine. I just don't think they're that great. I don't even necessarily would say they're good. But offensively, yeah, Tennessee should be able to run the ball. I think that'll be, as Shumper was saying, a point of emphasis where maybe on first down, where Tennessee kind of mixes it up a bit between running it and then getting out to the perimeter on those smoke screens and those quick throws to just try to get the offense rolling, get 4 or 5 yards on first down and really start to snowball things. I am curious if it is more of either designed run or like Shumper was saying, like, hey, unless it's like really right there, like just get the ground game going, because Mississippi State hasn't done a good job of stopping the run so far. And then I think Shumper brought up another good point too, where it's like you just can't have that mid-game lull that Tennessee had a little bit in the past, and then what they did against Georgia, where the offense stalled, and they got it back to a certain degree by the end of the game, obviously, to force things into overtime and give themselves a chance to win in regulation. You just can't necessarily do that against Mississippi State. Now, you don't have to score a touchdown every single time you touch the ball, but in this game, with an offense that Mississippi State has that can put up points, you get to like midway through the second quarter, like you still need to be firing on all cylinders and having at least efficient drives. And even if it doesn't end in points, like move the chains a few times and pin them deep with the punt or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Give your defense a rest. That's where, no need to harp on it, but the defense, which has been much maligned so far this season, that stretch early after they gave up that opening touchdown drive against Georgia was really impressive. And just to your point as a whole, Sylvia, like I don't worry about that letdown as much, like in the second and third quarter. To me, that was more of a Georgia thing than it was anything else.
And that was also a situation where it felt like Tennessee couldn't get the run game going in the middle of that Georgia game. Georgia really tightened up with their run defense, and which obviously makes things a lot harder to go through the air and to move the chains and do things like that, which against Mississippi State shouldn't be as much of an issue. You should be able to get out to quicker starts.
Going into a game like obviously what Tennessee is going to go into this weekend, big time road environment. It's going to be a fan base that I think is going to be fired up for this game. I'm sure they would have wanted it at night, but it's going to be a whiteout. They're going to be wearing their all white snow jerseys to kind of honor the Snow Bowl team from 2000 against Texas A&M in the Independence Bowl. It's going to be a big time environment, but there's not really, and I know that this is going to be Tennessee's first true road test, but there hasn't been anything this year so far that's told me that Tennessee maybe lacks maturity. Or lacks readiness or preparedness to go out there and play this game. And again, we'll see. It's a different kind of test this weekend, but you look at Syracuse and you look at Georgia, I feel like Tennessee was ready to come out and play good, solid football for those games. I think they'll obviously need that, and there'll be something to look at this week. But one of the things that does kind of make me curious about Mississippi State, obviously they had a tough go around with things last year, 2-10. It was a team who was trying to learn just how to win in general. I think that's still kind of the case. This isn't something that I know for a fact. Maybe it's just something I'm speculating on a little bit, but I look back at that Arizona State game from earlier in the year. Mississippi State jumps out to a 17-3 halftime lead. But then Arizona State in the final 2 quarters of the game, they outscore the Bulldogs 17-7. I sort of just wonder if maybe this is a Mississippi State team who is still kind of learning how to play a 4-quarter game in order to win. I think that if Tennessee can go out there, they can play their 4 quarters to what you guys were saying a second ago. I think that does give Tennessee a huge advantage in this game. Maybe the Bulldogs are still a team where the offense does tire out the defense a little bit at times. Maybe it's just a team who's trying to figure out what it looks like to win a 4-quarter game. You did have that game against Arizona State earlier in the season, but like I mentioned, and like you guys have mentioned a second ago, it was a little bit more skewed towards the Sun Devils side there as well. So again, I think that's maybe something I'm just speculating on, looking at their one kind of competitive game of the year so far. But I do give Tennessee the advantage when it comes to the maturity aspect, even though it's going to be on the road, and being able to play a 4-quarter game, which I think we've seen so far this season, even though there was that lull against Georgia, which you guys kind of just broke down in a very smart way a second ago.
Yeah, for sure. I think, more than anything that gives me pause for Tennessee in this game is just the uncertainty of going on the road. Like, we have seen Tennessee in the past largely just look like a different team in road games. And since we haven't seen them in a road game this year, like you did, I just have that question. And it's not necessarily that I think they will, but I would say that's my biggest concern. And 2 things I do think play to their advantage is that one, Mississippi State won that Arizona State game, so they shouldn't be flying under the radar. Like, they should have Tennessee's attention, where I don't think Arkansas last year. I don't know. Maybe that's not fair to say, but certainly it was a spot where Tennessee could have been looking over Arkansas. And then 2, Tennessee's lost that Georgia game. Like, they are a desperate team right now. This is, as Sylvia said, you can't lose it. You can't lose this game. So Tennessee has no reason to have any sort of lack of attention to detail, of concentration, of focus on this game, especially with a bye week next week. There's nothing to look forward to. Tennessee's all eyes should be on this game, and at the end of the day, I just think Tennessee's a better team. So that's why I think they're going to win this one. I don't see a look ahead spot. I worry about, is this just going to be a different team on the road? But veteran quarterback and a good offensive line in a game where I think they're going to be better on both lines of scrimmage than their opponent. I feel pretty good about Tennessee's chances.
Now, we say veteran quarterback, and he is a veteran quarterback, but he hasn't played in an atmosphere like this. Like, he played at Clemson, at App State, but obviously that's not the same type of environment. Like, you can tell a difference when you go to Neyland Stadium and Tennessee's hosting Georgia or an SEC team compared to when they host UAB or someone like that. So it will be new for him. I think he'll be fine. Like, everything you've seen so far, because I feel like it's a more pressure mounted situation to have that first drive against Syracuse, where all eyes are on what is Joey Aguilar this year. He won the quarterback job. He's replacing Nico. What does that look like? I think that's probably the most pressure he'll maybe see all year, is that first drive of his Tennessee career, and he goes out and marches Tennessee right down the field. Maybe the Georgia game is even potentially more pressure. All right, you've done it against Syracuse. You've done it against ETSU. Now you have this top 5 team or whatever coming to Neyland Stadium. What is it going to look like? I mean, right out the gates, he was on fire. Doesn't look like he needs any time to warm up and get going. Seems like he kind of hits the field ready to go. And that makes me think that he'll handle the road environment fine. But it is, potentially maybe one of the tougher road environments Tennessee will play in this year. Kentucky certainly is not going to be a good environment. That'll be horrific. It could be
crazy with what a rivalry game it is.
It's one of the greatest rivalries in sports. However,
huge. Unmistakable.
Field is a joke of an SEC atmosphere. That's the loudest the stadium gets, is when you get the cat meowing after they get the first. Alabama gets a little overrated. I think,
yes.
We'll see what Alabama looks like as a team by the time Tennessee goes down to Tuscaloosa. Maybe they're firing all cylinders. They look really good, and it's going to be this huge game, and Alabama looks awesome. Maybe they'd start to crumble a little bit once SEC play arrives. Well, I think we'll learn a lot about them.
We'll figure out a lot,
this Saturday when they play Georgia. Like, that'll be a very good litmus test of, okay, did you actually learn from that Florida State game and you're good, or are you actually just kind of all right? Because I don't think they're bad, but they could just be all right. If they are all right, and that they have 2 or 3 losses by the time Tennessee plays them, I think an atmosphere that's already a bit overrated could not be that great. And then Florida, which is an incredible atmosphere, don't get me wrong, the swamp gets rocking when it does. And what are the chances that the wheels are still on that bus by the time Tennessee goes down to Gainesville? Like, that team could completely crumble. Billy Napier might not even be the coach by the time Tennessee gets there with the timing of that game.
Better hope he is.
Yeah, right. It's probably a better team if they had someone else and they're maybe a little motivated for an interim head coach. But all that said, this Mississippi
Urban
State
Meyer
game could be
pushing
the
for the
toughest
job.
atmosphere Tennessee plays in.
Yeah, I mean, I said it
You did.
after
You called
the
it. You called it.
ETSU game, and I wasn't ready to go full toughest. I think I said maybe tougher than Florida. But you're right. I mean, there's a path of this being one of the tougher environments for sure. And the thing
Well,
I will go.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I should say real quickly, the thing I would go back to on your Aguilar point too. That's the thing that Josh Heupel has been most complimentary, or at least the thing that he said about Joey Aguilar most frequently that is notable is how it's just like moments don't seem to phase him. Bad plays happen, good plays happen. He's able to put that behind him quickly, which I think that aspect, while you are right, this is going to be a harder environment than he's ever played in. I think that aspect as a veteran is what doesn't really give me a ton of concern for him.
Well, to add to that point quickly, in the moments he's turned the ball over, he's responded immediately. So it's not even like it's just something Josh Heupel said. He's had the breaks go against him in unfortunate turn. And think of the Syracuse game where he fumbles. Was it pretty quickly they went down the field and scored the Georgia game after the interception?
It was his next. Yeah, because it was the defense touchdown the next play.
And was it the Braylon Staley? Was
yes,
his next,
two offensive plays later.
Yep.
All right, Rick. Sorry, we just kind of
sorry about that.
We just kind of crapped on you. Like, you don't get to talk.
Okay.
Now, with that said,
however,
I think to Ryan's point a minute ago, Ryan Shumpert, if I'm a Mississippi State fan, right, you've already doubled your win total from last year. You're in a good position. I think a bowl game is in the sights this year. I think you're playing with a little bit of house money here, right? If you can have another gigantic moment at home like you did to kind of start out the season against Arizona State, that's fantastic. And they're going to be pulling for that, and they're going to be going crazy for it. But if you lose, it's not like people are going to be calling for Jeff Lebby. It's not like this is a disastrous moment to the season. It was probably predicted by most people going into the season. So I think that can always present for a dangerous environment when you got a fan base that feels like they're playing with house money and they're going to be behind their team. Now, Tennessee can do things throughout the game to kind of silence them down a little bit or see if they can take some of the air out of the stadium and whatnot. But I do think that this is going to be just, again, a dangerous environment, not only because of the extra atmosphere that they're bringing in with the whiteout, but again, because, of kind of the house money aspect. And they certainly want to go out there and win this game. But if they don't, it's not like, you're calling for the head coach or you're running over to the message boards or things like that. I think they still got opportunities to kind of get to their goal this season. So I think that can play into a dangerous situation, unlike maybe some of the other places that you guys had mentioned a second ago.
Yeah, that is a good point. And you wonder if that, they're a little bit, you always have those games where you wonder about, like, if the team gets a gut punch early, how do fans respond? I think, and I don't know, I could be wrong about this, but I think Mississippi State should be poised to respond. Mississippi State's fans should be poised to respond well to that.
Couple of X factors to get into, Ryan. One of them was from your conversation with, I believe, Sam Schuyler.
Sam, yeah.
He talked about penalties being a big deal for Mississippi State so far this season. And I'll get into kind of one of the reasons why I think that could be true later on in a second, leading into my next one. But that's a big one. And maybe Tennessee can take advantage of it. But also on the Tennessee side of things, don't let that turn into a talking point for your side as well. Obviously, that's a big ask going into an atmosphere like that. But it would just be tough to see Tennessee, who I think we believe is the better team, sort of equal out that advantage because of penalties and because of costly mistakes in that nature. On the Mississippi State side of things, I think that one of the reasons for some of those penalties is because they have had a bit of a fluctuating offensive line.
Yeah. Crazy.
I think I read somewhere, whether it's your piece or somewhere else, that the first 4 games of the season, they've had 4 different implementations of the offensive line. Now, maybe things are trending towards this being the first week that they have back-to-back continuity. But I think that is a place. And, hey, maybe Tennessee gets some injuries back on the defensive line coming up this weekend. Maybe that's a place where Tennessee can take advantage of. But I do think that Tennessee is better in the trenches on both sides of the ball there. So don't let penalties, I think, if you're Tennessee, be an area that gives Mississippi State an advantage and see if maybe you can get a little bit of some good mojo if the Bulldogs do start committing some penalties at some point throughout the game.
Yeah, for sure. And penalties have not necessarily been a strength of Tennessee's team under Josh Heupel, but certainly they haven't been as bad this year as Mississippi State. And one other thing I'll just say, about Mississippi State, looking at them earlier this week, is they've just been really good in what I described as the margins. Third down offense, 48%, ranks 32nd nationally. Third down defense, 34th nationally. Scored on all 16 trips to the red zone, 13 of them being touchdowns. Defensive red zone has been good. They've only allowed scores in 6 of 9 trips, and only 4 of those 9 trips ended with a touchdown. +5 in turnover margin, ranks in like the top 15 nationally. So they've, that's one of those things where it's important to be good, but I think also I wonder, especially against lesser competition, is kind of how a little bit of a look of how a team is overachieving, and maybe a team isn't quite as good as their numbers look like, at least early in the season. If that's still the case in November, then those are just things that are really important that you do well. I do wonder at this point when you haven't played a ton of competition if that stuff can be a little bit misleading.
I'll go a little deeper in the numbers for penalties too. If you look at, because Tennessee hasn't been clean. The Georgia game too, they were penalized a lot. I think there's 10 penalties for 100-something yards in the game. They're averaging 60.5 yards per game of penalties, like the wrong way. And that's on a total of 28. So whatever, 28 divided 12 penalties, not 12.
I'm not doing math. Stop asking.
Yeah. You got that, Shumpert? 28 divided by 4 feels easy. It's right there.
It is 7.
7.
4 touchdowns.
That is so embarrassing.
28.
Neither me or Rick could do that. I'm gonna throw Rick under the
bus. I didn't even. No, I checked out as soon as you started saying it. I knew I might have a chance to mess up. I checked out. I don't even know what numbers you just said. Don't even know.
So 7 penalties per game for an average of 60.5 yards. That's not good. It's not the worst. It ranks 90th in the country, so it's not good by any means. Mississippi State, of the 134 FBS teams, comes in at 132. They're the third worst in the entire country across the FBS. 89 yards per game. That's looking at yards per game of penalties. 89 yards per game. Penalized 41 times. I can do that math. It's a little over 10 per game. So that's not good, especially, look at that. Especially when you're playing 3 not great teams in Arizona State. It's not a good number to have. So that will be certainly something to watch. It could get sloppy. I think both sides are definitely hoping that it'll get cleaned up. Doesn't make me very confident that Mississippi State side will, considering their head coach Jeff Lebby was asked about it during his press conference, and he essentially was like, one of the holds was here or there. Sometimes you call it, sometimes you don't. The other ones, like, just can't do that. Like they were penalties. You just can't do that. So that doesn't give you a lot of confidence that they'll maybe clean it up. But we'll see. Maybe they needed just a few games, and like Rick said, maybe some continuity on the offensive line. Whether that even is the case, or if they continue to rotate, what that looks like will help. Last note on that, though, number 134 out of 134 in penalty yards per game, UCLA. Not helping Nico out. Just leave it at that.
Not helping their head coach out either. They returned to action this weekend, right?
Yes, they did.
Yeah, against Northwestern. I'm not sure where the game's at.
I want to say it's on the road, but I could be wrong.
That's just
popcorn watching for Tennessee fans. SEC Shorts has just been all over this Tennessee UCLA connection. I think it's been in like 2 of the first 4 videos that they've done so far this season, maybe even 3 of the last 5 if you go back to the preseason.
Well, people forget in that trade between Tennessee and UCLA that Tennessee also got Janiah Barker, the basketball player, and she looked really good so far too. Like she looks,
you're at practice
coming out like bandits in this.
Man,
3:30 p.m.
bandits
Eastern time at Northwestern, Big Ten Network. The Wildcats are 6.5 point favorites,
and that is one of the prettiest stadiums in the country right now, where they have that
right on the lake,
temporary one located. It's pretty sick.
Yep. It's like the lacrosse field, isn't it? With like
I think it's temporary, like 20,000 seat if even. Like it's a very small
bleachers.
It's pretty cool.
It is cool.
That does remind me that we're gonna have to get a basketball podcast going at some point soon. And now that we got Sylvia, I think we can get a good Lady Vols, preview and prediction on as well. So I think that'll be exciting. Both of these guys were at the basketball practices yesterday. Not to harp too much on that, but that'll be exciting to kind of get their thoughts as we move into. Boy, I was going to say dual sports season. It's about to be tri-sports season now that we've got Sylvian in the mix and the Lady Vols coverage that he does as well. So a lot of things coming up on the horizon for Tennessee athletics, but kind of getting back to the football side of things as we wind this thing down. Guys, any other kind of final thoughts? Obviously, we'll do score predictions coming up on Friday. We'll save those for the site. But any other final thoughts on this game coming up for Tennessee? I think for me, again, go back to something I said at the beginning of the show. I just think that the run game is going to be really important for Tennessee. And I do think that the Vols have the advantage in the trenches on both sides. Star Thomas has looked better than advertised. And maybe that advertisement wasn't even that high going into the year. He has surpassed a lot of expectations. I think he fits this offense really well. I think the veteran presence that him and Joey Aguilar have together, but I think that Deshaun Bishop as well also works in a nice rotation. Peyton Lewis kind of the third man on that totem pole, and we'll see how much he's used on the road here this weekend. But I think that Tennessee does have an advantage, and I like the way that the offensive line has been playing so far. I think that certainly helps for a good road test as well. I give respect to Mississippi State and what they've been able to do. And I think, who knows, in a couple of years, Jeff Levy might be on a Josh Heupel sort of track and getting this team to a good position in college football. But as far as things go now, you respect Mississippi State for what they've done so far this season. But I think that Tennessee is just the better team here. I think that even with some of the struggles that they've had on the road before in the past, Ryan, you mentioned a second ago, I think that Mississippi State has Tennessee's attention in this game. And I think that Tennessee is going to come out fired up, ready to go. I see Tennessee covering the spread and not an easy win by any stretch, but I don't really think it's too much in doubt. Tennessee has outscored opponents 83-7 in the first quarter. Mississippi State, also a good first quarter team. But I think that this is a Tennessee team that can really kind of come out of the gates and blitz them and then rely on the running game to set things up and open things up down the rest of the way. So I feel pretty confident that Tennessee is going to go into Starkville and pick up a win so far, get back on track in SEC play this season.
Yeah, I think one point that you made, the last thing that I hit on for the game, I think with the crowd noise, the offensive line is the one that, I'm curious to see. Those pre-snap penalties, it is a new offensive line. A lot of these guys, the very least on the road in the SEC for the first time, if not on the road playing for the first time in their college careers. So that's an element of the crowd noise that I'll be curious to see. Because, as you said, the Tennessee offensive line has been great through 4 games. Let's see if they can keep it rolling in their first road test.
Yeah, they've been great, but there were those, kind of mental mistakes against Georgia at home. Now it's a big moment, it's pressure. It's not like it's completely silent in there, but you've got to think it'll be much louder as a road team at Mississippi State. So that is a great point. It's not just how Joey Aguilar operates and how the it's simply, will Tennessee shoot themselves in the foot, essentially, and hurt themselves and get behind the chains and make life difficult for them. If they don't do that, if it really feels like a game, I guess, is what I should say, is if Tennessee loses, I would be surprised if we left the stadium going, yeah, Mississippi State just outplayed Tennessee. I think it would be more so Tennessee got in their own way. Tennessee did this or that to themselves, whether that's penalties or turnovers or something like that. Wrong. And Tennessee beat themselves. I think that's the spot that I'm in with this game. And I expect Tennessee I don't think they'll blow them out. I don't think we'll be leaving the stadium and looking at a scoreboard that says 60-something to 17 or something like that. But I think Tennessee will win. And I think it should be relatively comfortable.
Real quick, predictions for the Tennessee uniforms coming up this weekend. As we mentioned a second ago, Mississippi State will be in all white. Are we all thinking that it's just traditional orange and white, or do you think there's any maybe outside chance at the all orange look that Tennessee rolled out last weekend as well?
If they hadn't worn it last week, I would think there's a chance. That's kind of what I want them to go with, but I think they'll go classic.
I think classic, and I think classic will look better too. Who knows? Maybe they'll go LSU, pull out the Smoky Grays for 2 games this year.
Don't even put that out there, Sylvia. That's
Get
not
the blackout jerseys going. Maybe, who knows?
The blackout jerseys, if it was a night game, I would have rather them worn orange, but I would have been cool with it. I think it would have looked good. Just can't do blackout during day games. No,
I also think it would have looked cool on the road, but like that 2022 season when we saw Smoky Grays come out against LSU, I don't think we saw them for the rest of the year. I think that would be criminal to, and maybe they would, but I think it'd be criminal to not bring the dark mode jerseys back out at Neyland Stadium. So I do think that would look pretty cool. I'm hoping for the all orange just because I like the all white versus all orange. I think that presents a pretty good spectacle. And there's going to be a lot of, fans wearing white, Bulldogs wearing white. I think it'd be cool just to bring in as much orange as you can, but it'll be a big time showing.
When you say all orange, are we talking about the helmet too, Rick Butler?
No. No. I think that thing is buried and dead. Although, if you ask the players, I think some of the players like it. We saw them. We saw them using the orange helmets on the EA college football video games, and for God knows why, but I think they like it. I still think those things are buried and dead. They got the worst debut imaginable. I mean, the worst possible debut, the worst maybe loss, I think, in a lot of Tennessee's fans' minds, and maybe the Josh Heupel era, one of the most horrible moments that Tennessee fans have seen in the Josh Heupel era. They were the star of that show. So no, I think those things are dead and buried.
Does Tennessee not go to South Carolina in 2026? You have to exercise the demons. You got to break them back out in Columbia. You have to.
All right, I'm back. I'm
actually on board with that. I don't even like the orange helmets, but just
if you're ever going to wear them, that's the case. But as someone who doesn't like the orange helmets, I hope we never see them again.
I really don't care for them either. That's kind of odd. If they wore them back to South Carolina and won that game, that'd be pretty sick.
The orange helmets cool narrative. Are currently being worn by the skeletons under Neyland Stadium.
They would have to dig them up or dig them out of the river first. But if they got them back, it'd be pretty cool.
Yeah. Last thing we'll get into real quick. Again, game predictions will be coming out on RockyTopInsider.com on Friday. You'll get to see what each one of us think about the game. And then also Matt Reed, who puts together some great previews for Rocky Top Insider. He will have his score predictions. So we'll have 4 coming out for you by the end of the week. Real quick, before we get out of here, because I think that we've set our pieces on Mississippi State. Big news coming out yesterday with the SEC. Now, Chris Lowe of On3 Sports and the RTI Lowdown, he did report back on Monday, I think it was, that Tennessee's 3 annual opponents would be Vanderbilt, Alabama, and Kentucky. That's exactly what came to fruition yesterday, but we got to expand. We got credit Josh Heupel for playing the long game here, right? Like Sylvia had mentioned a second ago, Kentucky, longtime historic rival of the Tennessee Volunteers. Mm-hmm. The beer barrel is one of college football's greatest traditions. It's up there with the Iron Bowl, Michigan, Ohio State. You know, everybody respects
USC, Notre Dame.
Yes, the beer barrel matchup. The third Saturday in October, I think, wants to be the beer barrel game. So it's good that the SEC respected that rivalry. I don't know what chart it was that somebody sent. It was from Reddit College Football, but like Tennessee got like the most rivals of anybody in the conference, and I think that played out favorably. And look, these 9-game SEC schedules are going to be tough, like no matter what. Yeah. Like Tennessee gets I think everything works out in the end. You know, you can look at Tennessee and say, hey, they got one of, if not maybe the most favorable draw with Vanderbilt, Kentucky, and Alabama. But at the end of the day, it's like, well, do you see who Tennessee's got to play next year? Like that's still a miserably tough schedule. And I think that all SEC teams are in the same boat moving forward. Maybe sometime later in the season, maybe during a bye week, maybe we can dive into the schedule a little bit more. But just to kind of give some initial thoughts on next year's, we know that the out-of-conference games are going to be at Georgia Tech, Furman, and Kennesaw State. Then your home SEC games, an elite slate of home SEC games. I'm not talking about win or loss. I'm just talking about brand matchups. You've got Alabama, Auburn, LSU, Texas, and Kentucky coming to Knoxville. And then Tennessee's 4 away games are going to be Arkansas, South Carolina, a return trip to Texas A&M, and Vanderbilt. Again, from a brand value perspective, that is just that's a wicked home slate. And if you have season tickets, congratulations, because those are going to be some fun games to tailgate and to party for. Seeing some big names like Auburn, LSU, and Texas, besides the usual suspects, all coming into Neyland Stadium.
For sure. I mean, just an incredible. I mean, the dichotomy of the home slate in 26 to 27 is crazy. But at least you get Lane Kiffin coming back if he's still at Ole Miss in 2027.
The many faces of Lane Kiffin.
That's right. But yeah, I mean, I think you look at the schedule and it's, one of my thoughts was just like, even year Vols continues. Like the schedule sets up better in these even years than it does in the road years. And obviously that's been the case the first half to Josh Heupel's tenure to date, that the even year teams have had better years and certainly more favorable schedule, getting Bama and Florida at home. So yeah, it's going to be fun. Like the 9-game conference schedule, you might see teams that are probably going to start taking a couple more losses, but it's going to be really fun with a lot of these games. And, some of it when we start getting into 27 and 28 and heck, even next year, it can be hard to actually project what these teams are going to look like. With the portal and everything, it can change pretty rapidly, but certainly an awesome home slate next year in a schedule that looks like it's going to be tough every single season, but more of those tough games at home in 26 as compared to 27.
I'm excited. I put up a quick last night of what I love, what I hate about the 26 schedule for Tennessee. So I won't spoil the whole thing. You can go to rockytopinsider.com to get my full thoughts, but I'll hit on one love, one hate real quick. Love Auburn getting
Yeah.
renewed. Obviously, you knew there is going to happen to some degree. It's not the same as playing every year, so it's not like the rivalry is fully back on, but it'll be cool to see Tennessee play Auburn again. Obviously, a historic rivalry. If you ask some older Tennessee fan, they would say that's like the
Yes,
biggest
Noah
rivalry
Taylor.
in Tennessee. If you ask Noah Taylor, he'll say it's Tennessee. I know he is excited about that game.
Y'all know, and Sylvia, you might have seen it doing it yesterday. The last time Auburn came to Neyland Stadium,
I know that it was a loss for Tennessee.
2013, Butch Jones' first year of head coach.
Wow.
Some of the stuff it'll be
a dozen years ago.
It'll be a full, I think you said a full decade between Tennessee's trips to A&M. It'll be like 14, 15 years between the last time Tennessee went to Ole Miss. And one of my favorites in the SEC, Georgia, has still not played in College Station.
Yeah, that always is a funny one when people bring that up.
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt.
No, you're fine. Yeah, I mean, that was one of the other ones I hit. It'll be fun for Tennessee to play some of those SEC West, formerly SEC West teams like LSU next year, where last time the Vols went to Baton Rouge in 2022, but the last time they hosted LSU was 2017, which doesn't feel like that long ago to me. But by the time they play that game, it'll be 9 years. So it's kind of wild. And then the other one was A&M, who obviously they played in 23, and then in that COVID year 2020. The last time they went to College Station, though, was that 2016 game that I think a lot of Tennessee fans try to forget that UT lost in overtime. A quick hate, though, I did not like seeing Arkansas on the schedule for a third straight year. It was fun last year, like, oh, cool, new team. Tennessee doesn't play them much, stumble and fumble. Just doesn't. I know you're gonna have to play them eventually, but it was like 3 years in a row. Just could have done without Arkansas, I guess. Would have rather saw Missouri, just because I think the Drinkwitz standing on business with Josh Heupel stuff that could have got a little fun.
Yeah,
it is,
for sure.
And this might have landed on your list elsewhere, but it's odd just not to see Florida. And I'm not sitting here complaining that Florida needed to be a rival or something like that. And I do think at the end of the day, like there is a beauty to the fact that the rotational opponents, you don't get somebody one year, you're still going to get them next year, right? Like it still keeps the teams on each other's radars on a frequent basis. I love the idea of these teams playing at home and away, every single team in the conference every 4 years. I mean, it's a small span of time at the, in the broader picture. I think that's a lot of fun. But it is kind of odd not seeing Florida on that Tennessee schedule. And obviously they will see them, in 2027, they'll get the Gators at home. So I guess that sets up for maybe 2029, the next time you go to Gainesville after this. So maybe Tennessee, it would be nice to exercise some demons here at the end of the year before having to wait a really long time before returning to Gainesville. But I do like where things are heading. I think between the transfer portal and then the 9-game slate with all these rotations and being able to play a lot of teams, I think that's just going to make the SEC a bloodbath, for the next foreseeable future. I think this evens up the playing field in a lot of different ways, and teams are going to have very hard schedules. No matter who you look at on any year, you're facing a lot of great opponents and a lot of quality competition. So I think this continues to make SEC football even better. Maybe a little bit harder to get up to that 11-1, 10-2 mark.
Yeah, for sure.
But certainly it is going to make just an unbelievable, slate of games from week to week in the conference.
Two thoughts on what you just said, Rick. I think one, it'll be interesting to see when we get to a 16-team college football playoff, because it feels like that's going to happen sooner rather than later. So I think that makes 9-3 a lot more feasible for teams to make the playoffs. And then two, I was a little surprised, to your point. I thought it would be Florida at home 1 year, Georgia, or Florida on the schedule 1 year, Georgia on the schedule next year, to where you would get one of those rivalry games every year. But so yeah, a little surprised it worked out that way, to where it's going to be Florida and Georgia on the schedule on the same years.
Yeah, that was what I put for one of the hates, is not that they're not playing them every year, because if I caught a pick 3, it would have been the 3 Tennessee got. It's for Tennessee's sake, the easiest matchups while still keeping Alabama. Like Vanderbilt's better, sure, but they're not, great. Like you should still beat them every year. And then Kentucky's just truly awful, and it's hard to see them digging out of this. Yeah. I saw you working on that. That'll be if you want to hear Jordan Matthews, former Vol, talk some junk about UT. Well, that'll be on RockyTopInsider.com sooner than later. But I agree. I would have liked to have Florida and Georgia staggered, but instead you get them piled up in both years. Not the end of the world, doesn't really matter, but still something that I guess wasn't my favorite on the schedule overall. Though you got the permanent rivals I think you wanted, and you got a really fun slate of games. It's gonna be tough, but as Rick was saying, it's gonna be tough for everyone. So who really cares? I think it 2026 schedule worked out pretty well, and obviously going forward should be pretty fun too.
I love the idea that a Manning is returning to Knoxville next year. I think that's just a fun element of the things that are, and that is assuming that Arch Manning does not go into the draft this year. But I think that does make for a fun element next year, and why I'm kind of glad that Texas comes to Knoxville before Tennessee goes to Austin. I just think that's a fun storyline going into the game, and will certainly give us, the three of us, plenty of content before that contest.
Yeah, it will be. I remember thinking we might get that game this year for peak Nico versus Arch, but obviously that didn't quite unfold the way everybody expected.
Well, I think Joey Aguilar's been better than Arch, so that would have been fun to kind of unwrap and unfold. But anyways, all right. Any other kind of closing thoughts as we get on out of here? Ryan, you have a Ryder Cup prediction for us here at the end of the show?
Yeah, I mean, might as well be positive. So we'll say 16.5 to 11.5. The boys in the red, white, and blue.
He only hates the Vols. He doesn't hate American golf. That's my takeaway here at the 56th minute of the show.
Yeah, I was positive about Mississippi State game. Yeah.
Nobody can complain.
I don't necessarily feel as great maybe as I said about the Ryder Cup, but we only get it 2 years, and I'm a pure fan. I'm trying to do a job here when I'm talking about Tennessee football. I'm trying to look at things as objectively as possible.
That's why he's the best in the business.
If you look at the YouTube analytics, like me and Rick were doing before one of the football games, we got some foreign listeners, so you might just irk some guys overseas.
That's true.
We do. Good point. We do. Yeah, shout out to all, although I don't think their average watch time was a 56-minute percentile, but if they are listening to this,
they made it.
Shout out to all of our international listeners. We appreciate you. All right. Well, I think that's probably a good spot to close, coming in right under an hour. Any other kind of final thoughts or things that anybody needs to get off their chest before the end of the show? It doesn't sound like it. So we'll go ahead into the housekeeping to close this thing off. If you want to follow Ryan Shumpert on social media, you can do that at rshump00. That's SCHUMP. If you want to follow Ryan Sylvia, you can do that at Ryan T. Sylvia. We learned last week that T stands for Trevor at Ryan T. Sylvia.
Doesn't.
It could be. Our good friend Jack Foster, you can follow him at Jack Foster Media. If you want to follow myself, you can do that at Rick_Butler, at Rocky Top Insider on all social media platforms. Stay tuned to everything we got going on before we go to the game. The three of us, we will be in Starkville coming up for the game this weekend. So, stay tuned as we'll have pictures, videos, all sorts of road environment things, as well as our typical post-game coverage. The RTI Lowdown with Bob Baskerville and Chris Lowe comes out Sunday nights on both YouTube and wherever you find your favorite audio. We will have a lot of fun stuff coming up, and I don't want to reveal any surprises, but I know there is a good guest coming up. I don't think this weekend, although there might be a good guest coming up this weekend, but I know there's going to be a good one the next one after that. So not this Sunday, but next Sunday. Be on the lookout for that one. Pancakes and Bacon with VFL Kyler Kerbyson and Reed Bacon come out Monday mornings on the RTI YouTube channel and wherever you get your favorite podcast. And then, of course, we will have all of our post-game coverage, the Rocky Top Insider Instant Reaction Show, the Rocky Top Insider Stand-Up Show. We will have all that going on Saturday night after the Tennessee-Mississippi State game. I think that's going to be it, though. Hey, stay tuned for a lot coming up this week as we get into the game. We're excited to bring you all the different content that we have, and we're excited to be here on the show today. Thanks so much for listening. We will see you in Starkville. For Ryan Shumpert, for Ryan Sylvia, I'm Rick Butler. Thanks for listening to the Rocky Top Insider Press Pass Podcast.